All right, welcome back, and welcome to anyone new who hasn't seen the channel yet. I'm here at Scottsdale Wellness Suites. This is where I give my trainings to therapists through the Arizona Institute for Advanced Psychotherapy Training. Here today, doing a video to extend what we talked about in the last one about acceptance. At the end of that video, I said that we were going to talk about some of the reasons that we have the responses we do. And so that's what this video is. So to go back to our example from the last video, if you get cut off in traffic, you're going to have a certain response to that. Some people have a very strong, emotional, powerful distress response. Some people don't, but a lot of times it's a really simple example for people to understand. So somebody cuts me off in traffic, they can actually be coming across the line but not have crossed the line yet, but I'm already upset. So the question is why? Why do I get so upset so quickly about these kinds of experiences, especially experiences that I literally have no control whatsoever over? If you had control of other drivers, then you could just use your control, you could have them do the things that you want them to do, and then you wouldn't have to have a problem. But as it stands, you don't have control, but you get upset. So the question is, why do you get upset? What's so upsetting about other people not doing what we want them to do? And the reality is, it's a really good question. You know, we justify our emotions so often, and we decide that our emotions are truth, right? I'm supposed to feel this way, everybody feels this way, but the reality is not everybody feels the way that you're feeling about that particular thing that you're experiencing at this particular time. So if you're feeling distress, which most people are, how can you not feel distress? How can you work on that to be able to feel better? So the beginnings of feeling less distress for a lot of people is understanding, and that's what I want to talk about now. Understanding why you're feeling how you're feeling. So if we have this belief that events occur and then I give those events meaning and then have emotion, why do I give those events the meaning that I give them? Some people might say it's because my parents did. Some people might say it's because of difficulties I experienced. Some people would say, well, I'm supposed to, it's just the way I am, it's how my culture is, it's all that. But the reality is, and what we need to understand is, you're giving those things meaning because of beliefs you have about the world. You have lenses that you're looking at the world through that you were given at a very young age. So, if you stop and think about it, 5 to 10 years old is a very, very profound time in our lives. Birth to 5, 90% of brain development, but you're not yet cognitive. You can't think about your thinking birth to 5. So there's a lot of things that happen there. Fine motor skills develop, language develops, social cues, but you're not cognitive yet. 5 or 6, you start to think about your thinking for the very first time, and that's why we start school at that age. Because if you think about it, addition, for example, is a very abstract concept. 3-year-olds can't really understand it. 5, 6-year-olds can start to understand it. So 5 or 6, we become cognitive. We understand that when we get on an elevator, the elevator moved as opposed to the world changed outside the elevator doors, but we don't really have a sophisticated understanding of how things go. So when things happen in our lives, 5 to 10 years old, we have 2 things that are going on. The first thing is, we still think that everything that happens around us is about us. And the second is that we believe that all adults know what they're doing. So if bad things happen, I blame myself for those things, and I create beliefs about myself and about the world and about other people relative to those things happening. And if adults are mean to us, if they bully us, if they're abusive toward us, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, we decide that means something about me, not about them, because they're adults and they know everything. They're gods. They know what to do in every situation. So if I'm mistreated by an adult, or if I'm mistreated by peers and I either tell an adult and they don't do anything about it, or I just have to think an adult knows, even if they don't know, and they don't do anything about it, then I decide that means something about me, right? So if I go to class and I say to my teacher, hey, Mrs. Smith, this other student is bullying me and it's hurting my feelings, and Mrs. Smith says to me, oh, don't worry about it, just ignore that person. I know that's not going to work because I've already tried to do that, and I told this teacher, who's smart because they're a teacher, and who's an adult so they know what to do, and they decided not to do anything about it. So what I take from that is I must not matter. I'm insignificant or unimportant. So that's where those really, really, what seem like innocuous experience to adults actually can have a profound impact on kids. So The idea is that those experiences then teach us things about ourselves. So I see the same 5 negative beliefs that people have, core beliefs. We're not talking about, just a thought or something like that. We're talking about a core belief, just like something like gravity. And I see the same 5 over and over. I'm not good enough, which is the shame schema, the shame maladaptive core belief. I think all of us in this culture on some level have this belief. It's the advertising runs off of it, right? You're not good enough, but buy our stuff and you'll be a little bit better. We know it doesn't work, but somehow advertisers keep spending all this money and keep selling all this product. So I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of love. I'm insignificant or unimportant. I'm not safe, or I can't keep myself safe, and I'm defective. So if I have one of these core beliefs operating, then when things happen, I decide those mean something and I shortcut to try to make it make sense. So then the next logical question might be, why do we shortcut these things? Why don't we just understand them for what they are? But you have to understand that our brains can't process all of the information that's coming in when we're 6 or when we're whatever your present age is. Because the reality is we have to shut down an incredible amount of the data that's coming in because we couldn't figure it out. If you're listening to my voice, I guarantee you that your attention is taken off of some other sounds, but you can still hear those sounds. Your brain's still processing those sounds, but you've decided you don't need them if you're listening to my voice, and so you sort of disregard those things. If a very loud sound or a dangerous sound comes up, your brain will naturally click in and say, oh, pay attention to that instead of Ryan's voice. So the idea is that our brains are actually set up to protect us and to keep us safe. And so what we're talking about is we have early experiences that set us up to try to keep us safe, but in ways that become maladaptive or not useful later in our lives, right? So if you think about it, a person who gets cut off in traffic and runs the person off the road and pulls them out of their car and beats them up, that's an 8-year-old having a tantrum just with a much more powerful body, much more control. But that's the interesting piece, right? We don't say, oh wow, that person is in so much control. We say, what is wrong with that person? But if we can start to understand these things, then we understand that everybody makes sense once you know the whole story. We just need to know the whole story. Most people, you're never going to know the whole story. That person who freaks out in the middle of the grocery store and yells at the checker, that person who drives very dangerously, you don't know what's going on. But that's the interesting piece, right? So if you give your power away to make you feel a certain way because of what they're doing, then what you've done is you've let someone who you have no context for their behavior decide how you feel. And my whole point of all of this is to tell you that you don't have to feel any certain way based on any certain thing that happens. So the biggest question that I have for all of my clients, all of you, all of my students who I teach is this: who taught you how to respond to that situation that way? Is that person a credible witness? And do you want to respond that way, or would you like to respond another way? Because I guarantee you, you have power, you have control. Thanks for watching. Check out our next episode. Thanks.